Surprise! After being convicted of a crime, Mr. Trump received a record amount of financial support. Mr. Trump's campaign raised nearly $53 million in just 24 hours after his conviction, breaking all previous records of the Republican Party. Former President Donald Trump's campaign announced that it had raised $52.8 million online in just 24 hours after his criminal conviction. Susie Wiles and LaCivita, two of Mr. Trump's top advisors, emphasized in a joint statement that this was just start, hinting that support for the former president will increase even more. Also, according to Mr. Trump's campaign, nearly 30% of online donors are new to WinRed, the Republican Party's campaign donation processing platform. Expressing caution with statements from Mr. Trump's campaign, the New York Times explained that the figures cannot be verified until WinRed and the campaign submit documents to the Federal Election Commission in the coming months. However, at the present time, the amount collected on May 31st has posed many interesting comparisons. For example, it is significantly more than the $4 million that Mr. Trump raised after a photo of him going through procedures at a Georgia state court was published. It is also close to the $58 million that Mr. Trump's campaign received from online donations in the last 6 months of 2023. $52.8 million is also twice as much as the amount of money that Joe Biden's election campaign received within 24 hours, after he announced Ms. Kamala Harris as his 2020 vice presidential candidate. Cash is still one of incumbent President Joe Biden's advantages in the race. His main campaign committee entered May with $84 million, compared to Mr. Trump's $49 million. Mr. Biden's campaign has leveraged its cash to advertise in key battleground states. Mr. Trump's conviction also appears to be boosting donations to the Democratic Party, although to a much lesser extent. ActBlue, which handles online contributions from the Democratic Party, recorded $1.3 million in donations in just 1 hour after the court declared Mr. Trump guilty on May 30th. Trump supporters flew American flags upside down to protest the ruling. Mr. Trump's supporters hung the national flag upside down in front of their homes or posted this image on social networks to protest the New York court's ruling. Mr. Trump's supporters hung the national flag upside down in front of their homes or posted this image on social networks to protest the New York court's ruling. Mr. Trump's supporters hang the national flag upside down in front of their house or post this image on social networks to protest the New York court's ruling. Green is an ardent supporter of Mr. Trump. Country music singer Jason Aldean also posted a photo of the upside-down flag on his Instagram account with the content, "Scary times in our country are going on." Don Tapia, ambassador to Jamaica under Trump and a Republican donor, flew the flag upside down outside his home in Arizona. The inversion of the flag attracted national attention when the New York Times reported in mid-May that this flag appeared outside the home of Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito, weeks after the riot at the Congressional Building on January 6, 2021. Alito, a Republican appointed to the court by former President George W. Bush, explained that his wife flew the flag upside down because of an argument with a neighbor. Dan Bongino, radio talk show host conservative and interviewed Trump earlier this week. Don Tapia, ambassador to Jamaica under Trump and a Republican donor, hung the flag upside down outside his Arizona home. "If there ever was a time if you need to speak up, it's now. Don't make a mistake. We're in trouble," Aldean said. Don Tapia, ambassador to Jamaica under Trump and a Republican donor, raised the flag upside down outside his home in Arizona. Mr. Trump, the first former president to be convicted, said he would appeal. President Biden condemned Mr. Trump's statement, considering it a sign of danger to the judiciary. United States. Historian Timothy Naftali said the upside-down American flag was first used by sailors in the 1700s to signal danger. Since then, it has served as a political symbol on both the left and the right in America. Some cried and others laughed after Mr. Trump was declared guilty. Mr. Trump's supporters looked down sadly, while critics cheered in celebration when they heard the news that he was found guilty. This is a photo taken in August 2023 in the state of Georgia, when he appeared in the prosecution case accused of plotting to overturn the election results in this state in 2020. This photo was later used by the campaign of Trump, and his supporters used it as evidence that he was a victim of a witch hunt, a phrase often used to refer to the act of looking for dirt to smear a political opponent. Former U.S. President Donald Trump on May 30th attended a criminal trial in Manhattan, New York, to hear the jury conclude whether he was guilty or innocent of 34 charges in the prosecution for allegedly falsifying business records. businesses to spend money to conceal unfavorable information during the 2016 election campaign. Many people gathered outside the courthouse as well as locations associated with Mr. Trump to wait for the verdict. Meanwhile, groups opposing Mr. Trump gathered, rallied outside the courthouse in Manhattan, carrying signs such as, "Election interference is a crime, not above the law." Outside Trump Tower, a group of supporters carried national flags and banners saying, "Trump wins," and "Justice for Mr. Trump." One person held up a photo of Trump's prison records, accompanied by the words, "Never surrender." Mr. Trump's supporters meanwhile were sad and dismayed. A person wearing a Trump hat bowed his head and quietly left. Late in the afternoon of May 30th, the jury informed presiding Judge Juan Merchan that they had unanimously found Mr. Trump guilty. People who opposed Mr. Trump danced in celebration when they heard the news. Many people hugged each other and smiled. Some people held up signs saying, "Don is guilty of a felony," or repeatedly chanted, "America, put him in jail." Look at the deceitfulness of American politics. This makes no sense. I think in the end the sentence will be reversed. Mr. Trump will not go to jail. He will be re-elected, this person said. Judge Juan Merchan set the sentencing date for July 11th. Falsifying business records is a misdemeanor in New York, with a maximum penalty of 4 years in prison and a $5,000 fine for each count. However, observers believe that Mr. Trump is unlikely to have to go to jail, because he has no criminal record and the offense was not violent. Mr. Donald Trump is still running for President of the United States, even if he has to go to jail. Mr. Trump can still run for the White House because the U.S. Constitution only sets out 3 criteria for a presidential candidate: being an American citizen born in the U.S., over 35 years old and living in the U.S. for at least 14 years. The U.S. Constitution has no provisions prohibiting a citizen who has committed a crime from participating in elections. Mr. Donald Trump became the first U.S. president to be convicted of a crime on May 30th in the trial of using hush money to porn star Stormy Daniels. Mr. Trump was found guilty of all 34 crimes for which he was prosecuted. Alina Habba, one of Mr. Trump's lawyers, told the BBC that the former president is a victim of political prosecution. Lawyer Habba said that Mr. Trump plans to appeal and will continue to run for president even if he is in prison, because there are people who need him. Mr. Trump has not yet been convicted, but could face a maximum sentence of 4 years in prison, although that is unlikely. According to Fox News, Mr. Trump is 77 years old, a first-time offender, and the number of charges is considered to be the lowest in New York, making it unlikely that the 45th president will face a prison sentence. He can also be sentenced to house arrest, home during his re-election campaign, which would prevent him from campaigning, but could still hold fundraising activities from his Mar-a-Lago home or one of his other residences. However, if Mr. Trump is sentenced to prison, he will not be the first presidential candidate to campaign behind bars. Socialist Party presidential candidate Eugene V. Debs campaigned for the White House in 1920 from inside a federal prison after he was convicted of sedition for opposing America's entry into World War I. According to recent polls, voter support for Mr. Trump is not affected by the trial. A poll by the New York Times shows that Mr. Trump is leading President Joe Biden in most important battleground states, including Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania and Arizona. Mayor of New York City Eric Adams said in early May that New York City's Rikers Island was prepared if Mr. Trump was sentenced to prison. Mr. Trump still enjoys Secret Service protection regardless of whether or not he is imprisoned. Mr. Trump's election campaign announced that by the end of May 31st, U.S. time, it had raised $52.8 million online in just within 24 hours of his criminal conviction. This number broke all previous Republican mobilization records. In your opinion, which side are you on? Do you support Mr. Trump regarding this event? Please comment to let us know. This is the end of the video. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Hello and see you in the next videos. I am 5 Minutes Discovery.